Welcome to this week's episode of Gaston's Great. With 241 downloads, episode 51, Carolina Q, comes in at number 4 of our most popular episodes of Season 3. Carolina Q was featured as an exhibit at the Shield Museum. During this podcast, you will hear about the science, history, culture, and evolution of barbecue. Check it out now. Hello, Gaston County. Welcome to episode number 51. That is correct. You heard that right. And Elizabeth tells me this is the officially opening of season 3 of Gaston's Great, a podcast highlighting some of the great things happening in and around Gaston County. I'm your host, Stephen Long, and we are coming to you from the international headquarters of GSM Services right here in downtown Gastonia, as we look forward to having some more great discussions in the coming weeks and months. We simply believe in discussing more of the reasons why Gaston's great. We're highlighting another great event, exhibit, experience. We're going to call it all kinds of things this week. And we have Tony and Emma Paysauer with us today. Tony is the head of interpretation. We're going to hear all about that, I'm sure, before the episode is over at the Shield Museum. And Emma is the marketing assistant with the museum. Tony and Emma, it's great to have you on, and welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
So we're going to get right to it, but I'm also going to point out that for the first time ever, we are video recording this episode as well. And so who knows what's going to happen and where this is going to go.
You started with me. Now,
well,
who's planning this?
Well, we disfigured that we only could go up from here, Tony.
I
so,
understand. Okay.
So we're starting at
watch out for episode 52.
But to balance you out, we have your lovely daughter here with us. So
keep the camera on her.
So we're golden. So Tony, maybe start with you, if you don't mind. Just kind of tell us a little bit about yourself, anything you'd like to share.
Well, people don't pick up on it because I like an accent, but I'm a local. I've lived here in Gaston County my whole life. I grew up in the western part of the county, attended school here in Gaston County, spent a lot of time in the countryside, a lot of time here in our cities, and really, really love this place. This is home. It's been home to my family on both sides for more than 200 years.
Oh, wow.
Our folks have been here a long time, and I feel a real connection to Gaston County and the people of Gaston County. And my real home, the Shield Museum, I basically grew up there too.
Right.
So I've spent the better part of my career at the museum and almost my entire life in Gaston County with the exception of college. So I know people can't pick up on that and listening to me, but I'm a local.
Well, good. I appreciate you sharing that. Emma, what about you?
So I graduated from App State in May 2021 with a journalism degree. Obviously not in journalism, but I decided to go into marketing, and I went to the Shield as an intern. I turned into a marketing assistant position in December, and I've been here ever since. And like Tony, obviously, I've grown up with the Shield. I've basically lived there since I could walk. I think there are pictures I've seen of me in a baby carriage over there at Fossil Fair. But
I remember Fossil Fair, yeah.
Yep. But, I've been around just as long as I've been alive. So the Shield is a very big part of my life. And,
So where did you guys go to high school?
I went to Kings Mountain.
Okay.
I went to Cherryville.
Okay. Very good.
I used to drag her to everything when she was little at the museum, but now she drags me around town, and so here we are.
To this podcast.
Things have come full circle.
So something I didn't mention actually in the introduction was actually what we're talking about. We're talking about the Carolina Q, I guess, again, event, exhibit, what Tony described beforehand, the experience. So let's just get right into it. Tony, this question's for both of you, but kind of explain what is Carolina Q? What's your role with it? Let's talk about the basic details. Just kind of, let's go ahead and so our listeners can kind of immediately understand what we're talking about here.
So our mission at Shield is promoting the world around us, and especially the role of humanity within that. And one of the really cool aspects of my job is I get to be one of the people that decides which stories we're going to tell. That's a really broad mission. So there's a lot of different things we can do with our programs and with our exhibits. So we get to decide within that mission and that outlook what and how we're going to say about things. So Because of that, I spend a lot of time thinking about what I'm interested in, and I make assumptions that, well, if I'm interested in it, and of course everyone else in our local audience is going to be interested in it.
Surely, yeah.
The fact of the matter is, that's how we come up with a lot of our ideas, and that, of course, too, with community needs and different kinds of opportunities and resources that we have, we just arrive at that. It's been a little while since we've told a cultural story, if barbecue can be a cultural story. I mean, in fact, it's an extremely strong cultural story. It's been a bit since we've done that, and there's some themes in the story of barbecue that really go beyond, hey, let's get something good to eat and talk about what is. There's some other things going on with barbecue that I personally think are very relevant and deserve some recognition in the sort of the world we're existing in today. So I thought a lot about that and how barbecue works and the story of barbecue and what goes on in communities with barbecue, and thought it would be a good time to tell a story like that. But the basic idea of Carolina Q is it is a look at the culture of barbecue in the Carolinas. Barbecue is a huge subject. There's a tremendous variety of opinions and a tremendous number of cultural takes on this culinary institution. So we're trying to tell a brief story about barbecue here in North and South Carolina, and even within that area, all the differences in that. But it's a story about history. It's a story about our local and modern culture. It's a story about natural resources. It's a story about people. So we're weaving together a lot of different threads into what basically has come into this thing that's just part of our lives here in Gaston County and many other places around the Southeast.
All right, so that's a big take there, and I'm gonna just to make sure. I'm assuming that Emma came along to make sure you are accurate in your descriptions of everything. Is that so? Was that pretty good, or anything for you to add to that?
Just the history, culture, science, all of what makes barbecue and what makes barbecue in our culture and in the Carolinas, basically.
All right, so with that in mind, I mean, so the event or the exhibit, at the museum, what specifically are you trying to accomplish? When is it? I'm assuming that when you say exhibit, it's over an extended period of time, and so our listeners can go ahead, can get ready for it.
So we do different kinds of exhibits, but you come to the museum to see things. We have permanent exhibits, and of course, nothing's permanent, but there's something that you can consistently expect to see year in, year out. But because the Shield, like many museums, serves a local audience, we need to have other kinds of experiences there too, or people would see everything we have to see and be done with us. So we do what we call featured exhibits, and featured exhibits have a limited run. Some of these featured exhibits we bring in from out of town. There's companies that produce these things and travel them all over the country or the world, or you can produce those in-house. We have, we're really blessed to have a staff and support network that allows the Shield Museum to design, build about 70% of what we display in this format. We don't have to rely on others to bring products in. We can build them ourselves. And the advantage to that is then we can tell very specific, sometimes local stories. It'd be very hard to find an exhibit that would fit this particular story we're trying to tell. So we just make it ourselves and do it. And that's a testament to the great staff that we have there. But a featured exhibit will usually have an opening day, and in this case, this is Saturday, June 18th, the day before Father's Day, and it'll usually run for a period of time. Sometimes it's a short time, 2 to 3 months. Sometimes it's a little longer. At the moment, we've not set a closing date. I'm going to say at least through the end of 2022. We'll probably extend it a little further, depending on how it goes and what other things we have in front of us. It's a smaller exhibit, about 800 square feet. But it's going to tell a lot of stories. There's a lot of information there. So it will open day before Father's Day, and we thought the timing on that would be just perfect. This is really a kind of a summer rollout. Somewhere around Memorial Day, Father's Day, 4th of July, that seemed natural.
And dads like barbecue?
Dads like barbecue. I haven't met one that doesn't like barbecue. If anybody needs a last-minute Father's Day idea, barbecue. Or a way to make barbecue or something. Yeah.
So what is the exhibit going to, what's it going to be like? Or is that a secret that if you tell us you'd have to kill me? Or
no, not really. There's a lot of information.
Okay.
There's a lot of stories told graphically and with videos, and then we've built some some exhibits that go in cases that help illustrate the story. And the centerpiece of the exhibit is really going to be a diorama, which is a recreated scene showing some local folks conducting a whole hog barbecue, so in a backyard. So it makes a nice backdrop for the stories that we're trying to tell. We've got some other items on display. Mostly we've created them with what's I think the coolest thing at this point is our sculptor, Michael Kieran, has made 2 miniature barbecue pits.
Okay.
That'll fit in cases, one for direct heat, one for indirect heat. So he's made these tiny cement blocks and carved foam into brick, and it looks just awesome.
Very realistic.
So, yeah, I mean, his talent's really on display there. That's going to be the highlight of the exhibit. I think people are really going to love. They love miniatures, so we've got that in there. And we got a display on a pig, and we don't have a live pig in the exhibit. We have live pigs at the museum, but not in the barbecue exhibit.
Not in the barbecue exhibit.
And
that might be traumatic.
there's spices and woods and things like that, and barbecue implements and that sort of thing. But a lot of the exhibit revolves around these really well done graphic panels that tell these stories in both words and pictures.
Okay, so you mentioned early on that you're able to be involved with exhibits and what is coming to the museum. So how did this, I mean, you mentioned kind of the history, but how did this specific exhibit come to, hey, this is something, you know what, we are going to do this. Why the Shield Museum, why now, and just kind of how did it come to fruition?
Well, I was looking at a lot of different kinds of exhibit ideas, and we have a smaller space in our North Carolina hall that I've always wanted to take what was a program space and start to do some small exhibits in there to sort of improve the area. And the exhibit concept that goes in a room themed about North Carolina really needs to be about the Carolinas. So we had a limiting factor there, and I have 2 or 3 exhibit ideas that relate to the Carolinas, and this just seemed to be the best one for the time. So it was partially just the practicality of this is a smaller exhibit idea that fits this smaller space, and it can be something ongoing. From a different aspect, looking at barbecue, and maybe we can get into this more later, or maybe this is the time now. Barbecue is one of these things that appeals to a wide range in our society, and it's pretty simple as far as I'm concerned. Everyone eats, no matter who we are, whether we're left or right, black or white. You know, any other divisions we want to create. Everyone eats, and everyone enjoys a meal, and often in our communities, in our society, in our families, no matter what our differences, we can sit down at a table like this, and we can share a meal, and at least for a little while, it's okay that we're different. It's okay that there's other opinions, because we can agree this barbecue is really good, and that's great slaw. Isn't it cool that we have the best in the world right here? Barbecue is one of those foods that brings people together, that has a way of unifying people. And we see that in the story of barbecue across time. But I just personally felt like we're at a time when we should spend a little time focusing some of our energy on the things that we have in common, on things that bring us together, not necessarily so much time on our differences and things that force us apart. So we all eat. If we've got good sense, we like barbecue. Even if you don't, the sides can bring you to the table.
Let me just clear my throat.
So there's that. I just feel like it's a great time to tell a story that is unifying in nature.
All right, so I'm going to have to go now because she went there. So, Emma, would you like to?
There is a place in Asheville, I believe it's called Bonfire Barbecue, that makes vegan barbecue. It's made out of tempeh or however you say it, but it's really good. But I like to eat the sides. I'm a side person. I like white slaw and then baked beans and then maybe like some of that barbecue bread that's like a pull-apart barbecue bread. I'll eat that too.
Yeah, I have to admit, I'm all about some hush puppies with some barbecue.
There we go.
There's something about that.
And you know, there's a whole story with that, and not to step on your questions, but
oh no, the questions are over. We're going in our own direction now.
Barbecue really is a representation of food that was commonly available to all levels in socioeconomics, and it tended to be food that was inexpensive, But there's many inexpensive foods when prepared correctly, or it doesn't matter what your income is, you're going to enjoy them. And the fact of the matter was, in the Carolinas in the early days, there was a lot of pork roaming around free, and everybody raised corn. And what they didn't drink, and there was a lot of that. There's a lot of corn turned into whiskey for economic purposes and also, other purposes.
That sounds like another exhibit, or have you already had that?
We've already talked about that in the show. But corn and pork were very, very common things, even when a lot of the Carolinas were wilderness areas. Everybody had access to these things, and that meant that even in January, you have something to eat. So if we look at just the basics of a barbecue meal, pork, corn, cabbage, things that save a long time, things that are relatively inexpensive, things that the average person could acquire or produce with the simplest of skills. And that's really where it started. It's what could we eat to survive, and that's where this began, really, in a lot of ways.
All right, so we're going to go down this road of these, I don't know if we would call them myths, or what's really what our listeners are probably thinking. So you mentioned North and South Carolina. So you hear this argument, this statements about Western North Carolina, Eastern North Carolina, South Carolina. So we're putting to both of you, we're considering you are experts now. Okay, so let's have it about what's the differences, or is that just something people make up, or or is it something they're going to have to come to the exhibit to find out?
Well, we talk about it.
Okay.
But one thing to mention, when you're talking about yourself and your preferences, you individually are the expert. So everybody has an informed opinion here. You like what you like, and you tend to like what you're used to eating and what you maybe grew up eating. So there's a tendency in people to have an affection for the things that remind them of home, that they're really used to. So it's no accident that a lot of people feel like the best barbecue is right in their backyard or right down the street at the local restaurant, and that's pretty much the case. If you look on a broader scale in the United States, there's four main types of barbecue. There's Carolina type, there's a Memphis style, there's a Kansas City style,
Yep.
and then there's Texas. And when you get into Texas, you got a whole different animal with cattle. Why cattle? There were a lot of cattle running around Texas
Brisket,
when it was
it's
being settled.
more brisket and that kind
It
of.
had to do with when the people showed up and what animals they had access
Sure.
to and what could poor folks eat. What happened. So you have four main areas. We're only dealing with the Carolinas. But if you look at the Carolinas, you can make all sorts of divisions between styles. I decided to make four groupings in the Carolinas. I saw some information from the South Carolina Barbecue Society or Council or whatever the official entity is there. And they said in South Carolina there's 5 regional styles. Well, I just lumped it all into 4. So I consider in the Carolinas, in my opinion, and it ignores the state lines a little bit.
Yeah.
But there's Eastern Carolina, Piedmont, Western, and a mustard style that I call South Carolina. There's other kinds.
From my perspective, we don't even going to talk about that one.
And and the bottom line, I think I say this on the exhibit panel, they're all good. They're all good. They're just different. And why are they different? Well, they're different because people settled parts of the Carolinas at different times. And the people that settled the different parts of the Carolinas at different times tended to come sometimes from different places. And they brought with them their individual cultural traditions from other places, and they made these areas their home, and they started modifying the things they had to work with to try to make it as much home as possible. And over time, you had things develop. So, for example, in eastern North Carolina was settled very early, and eastern South Carolina as well. And a lot of people that ended up there were from England, and they brought with them a real affection for vinegar. Tomatoes were not considered something that was edible. It's poisonous. We don't eat those things. So the sauce that developed, it's no accident that it's heavy on vinegar, devoid of tomatoes. Very early, the barbecue stories really, the stage was set by people in the Caribbean, roasting animals over pits, over coals, and they would sometimes hydrate what they were roasting with the sauce that took advantage of peppers. There were a lot of peppers available, and so that really migrated into eastern Carolina too. So it's no accident that food in the earliest parts of the Carolinas that were settled by Europeans and folks from Africa were using vinegar and peppers. And when the Piedmont was settled, it's a little later. It's the mid-18th century, the 1740, 1750, when my family showed up. And by that time, people were a little more accustomed to tomatoes. Tomatoes there's some people eating them now. And vinegar might not have been as easy to get. There's tomatoes around, so we start having a tomato sauce that starts to develop. In South Carolina, we have a lot of settlement in the 1820s, 1830s, a lot of German immigrants moving in from the northern regions of the country into South Carolina. Germany, bringing traditions from Germany with them, bringing with them a love of mustard. So it's no accident that we have mustard used as a basis for a sauce there. And that's just looking at the sauces. The changes in these regions, the differences had to do with the people, where they were from, and what they did. And if your neighbor's doing something a certain way, a lot of times you end up doing something very similar. And we had the beginnings of these regional variations that came up. So it makes it beautiful then drive across the state and stop at one place or another and see the differences in the barbecue. Yeah. There's also there's a variety in how barbecue's cooked as far as the cuts of meat. In the eastern part of the state, they really believe in whole hog barbecue. You roast the entire animal over a pit just like people in the Caribbean did. But settlers later used cuts of pork. In the Piedmont and western sections of North Carolina, it tends to be shoulder, what we call Boston butt, that is most typically roasted. And so you have a difference there, too. You get different tastes. You're combining many different elements of the hog. When you do a whole hog, you're combining more limited elements when you're doing a shoulder, a Boston butt. So it produces different kinds of products there. Again, it's all good. How that meat is then prepared. Are you going to shred it? Are you going to chop it? Or are you going to slice it and put it on a sandwich? You got differences there in texture. How are you going to flavor it? What kind of wood are you going to use? The different woods that we have around us, they bring different aromas. They flavor the meat differently. Well, we use a lot of hickory here in the Piedmont. Why is that? We'll go out in the woods and look around. What do you see? You see a lot of oak, a lot of hickory. Down in Texas, they use a lot of mesquite. You're not going to find the hickory and oaks there. You find mesquite there. That's what was available. So we had those regional differences show up in the product as well. So then today, a big source of debate among barbecue people, and especially on the restaurant front, is what kind of fuel are we going to use? Are we going to use gas? Are we going to be a traditional barbecue outfit and wood fire it with coals? Are we going to use electricity to provide the energy to conduct this cooking?
Yeah.
And how does that affect the quality too? Most everyone around, of course, uses something more modern than coals, but those that tend to use coals, they let you know. We still do it this old way. There's a little place down in a town called Aden at the end of the earth in eastern North Carolina, and that's part of what their story is. We still do whole hog, coal-fired barbecue. So you can get a lot of differences in that. So my opinion, I've been to many of these places. They're all good. It's just how good is it? Some are just marginally good. Now I won't name those. But I do know one the Air Force tried to drop a nuclear bomb on in North Carolina. That's all I'm going to say about that. There's some really good ones around too. That's true.
Well, so I'll just come out. I think some of our early episodes, one of the questions we asked was, are you a Western or Eastern North Carolina barbecue? I mean, what do you prefer? And I have to admit, from your description, I'm more of a Piedmont Western personally. And then we had a guest, I think it was Steve DeAvier, I'm going to bring him out here, answered that question. We didn't give the option, but he optioned in the South Carolina mustard base. And I almost kicked him off the episode because that's just not it. So getting back to the exhibit, is the big question now that everybody's hearing this, you know that everybody's listening now, regardless of what time of day they're listening, they're hungry now.
Sure.
So is there going to be an opportunity for anyone to eat anything at the museum?
Well, I know that we're going to have a food truck out there Father's Day.
Okay.
But I believe this podcast will go up in July.
Well, so yes. So for you listeners out there, if you're hearing this, it's actually this episode was recorded
But
a
if
week and a
we-
half or so. However, we'll make sure we do some online announcements.
If we have a big enough turnout for that food truck, we might ask him to come back again. I mean,
absolutely.
yeah.
And we're going to have, I guess, different choices of barbecue, or is it just going to be one?
I believe he does sandwiches and then just like a barbecue plate.
Okay. Yeah, that might be a good Father's Day trip.
We're going to do a demonstration program opening day as well. We're going to smoke a whole hog on our farm, and we're not planning to do a community feed or anything like that.
Yeah, I got it.
But it's more about setting the tone and setting the stage for it, and really letting people see what the process is like and how it's done. It's going to be a whole hog Eastern approach. It's real sophisticated. We're going to put up a cinder block pit and go at it. So there'll be barbecue will be in the air. We'll put it that
Okay.
way. And
So-
within 5 miles, there's 6 or 7 places where one could go and get some really good barbecue here in town.
Yeah, I would ask, what is your favorite barbecue place? But that's probably an unfair question because, I could name, 4 or 5 right off the top of my head. And when we used to have the question, I think it is on here. Actually, I think I'm going to add it. I might ask you. There's a couple of barbecue places here that have come up with our favorite restaurant question. So,
And we have those, and I think if you ask most people that, it's going to be a place that they're real used to and they've been to a lot. And of course, I have mine.
Yeah.
I've made a habit the last few years that when I go to a different town to try to go to a different barbecue place. There's like 450 in North Carolina and 300 in South Carolina, so there's a lot of.
So you don't have to drive very far typically to
go
find
out
one.
out of town, and so it became this thing. And I don't know, I'm up to 60 or 70 or something like that I've been. But the problem I've run into, if I like one and I go back to that town instead of going to a different one, I want to go to that one. But so I said, well, I'm going to make a thing out of it. So I started collecting the menus and grading it a little bit, making a few notes.
Literally A minus, A plus.
There's a clipboard with menus on it that's fun. And then
That's a worthy endeavor.
then somehow or another we found this map. There's a company here locally that makes a great barbecue of North Carolina map.
Great
Oh, wow.
NC barbecue.
Great NC
map.
bar. So it's a map, this looming map that has every barbecue restaurant at time of publication on it. It's got a little symbol, and the symbol tells you, of course, where it is, but what kind of meat they cook, how they fuel it, and what kind of style it is, and all this stuff. And it's this greatest thing, and I wanted to put it in the house, and my wife said, "I'm not hanging that up." And I said, "Yeah, we're going to put it in the dining room. We're not going to do that." Well, we had to reach a settlement over a dog. So a dog came into the house, and as a result, I got to put the barbecue map right over the kitchen table.
Oh, that's terrific.
We had a poor young lady come have Thanksgiving dinner with us last fall, and she made a huge mistake. She said, "What's that?" So I got up, before long, I had a turkey leg or something, using it as a pointer. We're talking about
It's a
barbecue
presentation.
but that's the great thing about it is this is something everybody was interested in, I guess, and people can talk about because we all come from somewhere. We all have the things we like. We're all proud of who we are and our traditions and there's our cultural identity, and that's a wonderful thing. And it's nothing to be ashamed of. It's something to be proud of, and it's something that we can share with others, and we can be respectful about that and enjoy everyone's stories and everyone's perspective. And barbecue sort of works there if you package it that way.
We brought that map to the Carolina Barbecue Festival that we went to a couple weeks ago, and I would see people just walk up and be like trying to find their place on the map, and I would have
or
to tell
count the
them
places they've been.
might have been printed after, before it was shut down or opened, or because there's been hundreds that have probably opened since that map's been made. So
Well, maybe we can get that in the show notes where our listeners can get one of those.
If I could say my favorite style, and I think I'm hitting it over the head, but my favorite style is really this Piedmont style we have. It's the best.
Yeah.
But the other areas, they can be really proud of their product too. It's good.
Yeah, I was trying to think the most recent time I went somewhere in the east. Wilson, there's a place in Wilson, North Carolina. I'm not gonna remember the name of it, but man, I have to admit it was good. And I was out there with some friends at a soccer tournament, and of course we were online looking where's the best local barbecue, and White's comes to mind, but I'm not sure that's right. But
I
anyway,
don't think it's. I've been to one in Wilson that had this barbecue buffet. We went and moved an exhibit, and I took our exhibits crew there, and they had a whole hog on the buffet, and we about killed ourselves that day.
Yeah, it was really good.
Yeah.
So here's another myth that I wasn't aware of until maybe I went to NC State. When I went off to college, I met some individuals that maybe weren't from around here, and early on, they were, we would be talking about something, and they would use barbecue like a verb, like it was. And I was like, no, that's not. No, we eat barbecue. We don't go eat at a barbecue.
I ran into that at Appalachian my freshman year. I had a history class, and the professor got up there, and he got up and started talking about barbecuing hamburgers.
Yeah.
And I did not do it. I was too afraid to say that. Somebody challenged him on it and said, what are you talking about, barbecuing hamburgers? I've never heard of barbecued hamburgers. And we all had a real cultural moment there where we realized, barbecue can be a verb too. It's not necessarily a noun. So our eyes were a bit opened. But we worked on him the whole semester to try to get him right, because there's plenty of good barbecue in Boone.
Yeah. So
he can grill his hamburgers.
That's right. Yeah, you grill, or you go to a cookout, or you.
It's called a cookout.
Yeah.
When you grill hamburgers and hot dogs, it's
a
cookout.
Yeah. Or you can have barbecue at a cookout, maybe. But anyway, I just want to clear that up. You got that, Amy? Okay. Just making sure we got that one cleared up. So, God, this has really been good. So, is there anything else? Anything I haven't asked? Anything else I should have asked about the exhibit, or anything you want to share, kind of before we move on to these really important questions that people want to know about you guys?
I think we've covered it pretty well. We've got a lot of things for people to come and explore. We'll leave some fruit on the tree, so to speak.
Okay.
It is included with general admission. That is an important one.
Yeah,
it's no extra
not
cost.
An extra,
Pay to museum exhibit.
And of course, before we finish, we'll make sure it's clear on whether they can go look at it online, get details, and of course, again, we'll repeat the dates or at least when it starts, and knowing that it may be don't necessarily have an end date. So this is kind of for both of you. This will be a good question, I think. Maybe start with you, Tony. What advice would you give someone kind of wanting to get involved with the museum, or a career related to the type of work you're doing? And again, the same question for you, Emma, after that.
So museum work's a lot of fun. And I don't know that there's any real programs out there that train you for it. There's so many different aspects of it. And universities have museum studies programs, and that's all well and good. But like a lot of jobs, you just kind of have to be there and you do
sure.
it.
Yeah.
And I think to get into a museum career, you have to be willing to go and do things. And sometimes just be there, even if you're going to be a volunteer or an intern, or just go there and experience it and show what you have to offer, and then support that with your academic work or maybe other career experiences you have. But because museums are few and far between, and a community may have one, and there's a lot of variation in the museum industry between one type or another, you really have each one's almost a unique situation. So the best thing to do is just go, be a great visitor, be a member, volunteer a bit, get to know staff, really focus on the things you're interested in doing and what you like to do, and maybe what you could bring to the table, and pay attention to what you're interested in that other people seem to be interested in, and maybe there's a story to tell there. So getting involved is probably the best way to look at that. And I attribute my involvement at Shield not from the fact that I put in a job application one day. And my mother was a volunteer.
Okay.
My grandmother took me as a visitor every year on my birthday when I was a little guy. I went on many school field trips. I had a relationship with the organization long before I considered it as a career. So I already had a history there.
Right.
I already had a lot of knowledge about the organization. I was almost already part of it, and I think that's what's really required in a very limited industry like that.
All right, very good.
I think volunteering is it's probably the biggest one we need. We are a nonprofit, so every nonprofit needs help, not just Show Museum, but every nonprofit. But I think getting involved, like volunteers, we have them in high school, 14, 15, 16. They're not old enough to get a part-time job yet. So they come and volunteer during the summer and on weekends even. And I interviewed one for a video we were doing for Volunteer Appreciation Month, and he was like, I just do this to get out of the house, to get away from my parents. But it's cool because I was talking to him, and they already have this mindset of what they're going to do in college, what they're going to major in, what job they're going to have. And he was working with reptiles and animals, and that's not the only volunteering that you can do there, but it was showing him that, yeah, he really likes reptiles and amphibians, and he wants to go into that. And I think that kind of helped him make his choice, because when you're 18 and you decide, what do you want to major in college? Nobody knows. And if you do, you're lying. It's not true. You'll change.
Yeah, I sure didn't.
But I think it's a good helping hand, really, for you and then for the organization, too, because they benefit from your help. So.
All right, well, good. That's very good.
I used to do a lot of dinosaur digs in Wyoming, and I would just take interested people out west, and we had a dinosaur we're working on. And I took more high school kids out there that thought they wanted to be paleontologists out, and after a week they came back and said, well, that was fun, but
yeah,
we're
yeah.
not going.
that was a little too much shoveling.
Well,
for
to
me.
your point, you really don't. You know,
Oh.
college is great and it prepares you for a lot of things. For me, it probably prepared me more just to be on my own and figure out how to accomplish something on my own. But yeah, I didn't really learn what I need to know for my job really till afterwards, frankly.
Yeah.
Or I didn't know enough about what I really wanted to do, and actually, I'm still trying to figure that out.
Well, exploring is
I'm
a good thing.
I'm gonna be a professional podcaster.
Your skills are growing.
That'd be a sad day. That would be a sad day if that's what I had to rely on. All right, so I thank you guys. We're going to get into what we're going to call it episode 51, the Q questions, the Q speed round of questions. And this is going to be for both of you. So we're going to get through these really important questions. This is really what your family and the staff and everyone you know wants to know about you. But I'm going to start with you, Emma. What's your favorite thing to do or activity here in Gaston County besides your museum?
I really like.
You can't answer the museum.
Well, I really like going out to the parkway and the greenways with my dog.
Okay.
She's a pit bull mix, so she's very energetic. So
Wow.
we got to get her outside of the house because I cannot stand the zoomies inside the house. But yeah, going outside, getting into the nature that Gaston County has, it's really beautiful. The rivers and stuff, especially now when it's getting warmer. It's that spring summer mix. It's not too hot, but when you go in the evening, it's super cool and nice. So.
Very good. Tony?
Farmers markets. I don't know how to separate myself from the museum or the farmers market lifestyle. And there's a little time left over to like sleep and eat barbecue, and that's about it. Yeah.
All right, stay with you, Tony. Favorite dessert shop or bakery, or maybe even we'll even allow a favorite restaurant here in Gaston County.
Well, I'm gonna go with dessert right now. There's a little bakery over in Mount Holly called Queen Bee Bakery.
Yep, I'm
gotta
familiar
stay
with them.
I have to stay out of there.
Very good. Emma, what about you?
I'm going to go with the classic Tony's ice cream.
Tony's is pretty good.
I worked there. Well, I still do work there on Saturdays. I'm still working over there, but I've worked there since 2018. Great people, great ice cream.
Is that for the discounts? I'm just kidding.
Yeah, definitely discounts. I wouldn't be there without them.
See Emma on Saturday and ask for a specialty banana split.
Oh, yeah.
She loves to make.
It's not any difference in price. It's just special because I make them.
Oh, okay. But no extra money required.
No extra money.
Okay. All right. And what was the last place you ate out in Gaston County, and what did you order?
Where was the last place I ate out? I think it was Pizza Galley in Bessemer City.
Yeah.
I think I got, spaghetti with marinara sauce.
I went down to Venetia here on Garrison Boulevard lunchtime. I'm in there a lot. And they know me. The waitress knows my order. That means I need to stop.
So you can just they have it ready for you when you walk in the door.
They got a Greek salad down there that's really good.
All right, Tony, are you a North Carolina mountains or North Carolina beach guy?
I'm gonna have to say mountains. I'm Appalachian
Yeah.
State grad. I think I'd have to go with mountains there, but I love the beach too. It's all just like barbecue. It's all good.
Yeah, I've got daughter at Appalachian, and my son just graduated from Western North Carolina. So the last 5 or 6 years, we spent a lot of time up in both. I kind of consider that the western part of the state and kind of the northern part of the state. Emma,
Right.
what about you?
Of course, mountains.
Yeah, I figured that.
Obviously.
So this is a question that I ask, and I may regretfully modify it for today. So I'm going to say UNC, Duke, NC State, or Appalachian.
I'm going to go with Appalachian because in 2019, if you don't recall, Stephen, UNC and App State played, and do you remember for football, and do you remember the outcome of that game?
Actually,
I do.
I do remember that.
I have multiple videos of me applauding.
For me, see, that was a nice moment.
It was.
Yes.
Wow.
Even though my wife may not have enjoyed that very much as a UNC graduate, but as an NC State graduate, that made my heart swell with a small amount of joy. Yes.
Oh my goodness. That last field goal, I was on the edge of my seat. It was. I have not had more anxiety in taking a test or a class at App State. It was that moment right there when he was doing the field goal. I was like, please.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna have to go to App State too.
Yeah.
I got a few little connections with Duke
I
now,
thought
but
I thought
App
you
State.
might. Yeah, I thought you
It's
guys.
hard to shed that black and gold.
Yeah, I thought you guys might say that. So you're welcome for me adding that to the end. I normally leave off other colleges, but anyway. Emma, what is something very few people know about you?
So with like marketing and writing and video and photo, all the things that I do underneath the umbrella of marketing at the Shield, I also like to draw and paint.
Okay.
I'm very much into acrylics and just painting, just abstract stuff. And recently I've gotten into doing little portraits and stuff, self-portraits for other people, just abstract kind of things, but all the profits go to local non-profit organizations.
Okay, so anything specific, any organization specifically? Or
So I think I've just started this. So the first one I gave to was the Asheville Humane Society because that's where I got my up and holds a special place to me. But right now I'm just working on getting those people to come and actually want me to do their self-portraits so I can give more money to nonprofits.
all right, well, very good. So any listeners out there, you heard it here. It's some good calls, and also might have something worthwhile to keep. Tony, what about you?
I don't have nearly as nice an answer. I'm just going to say that. And a few people know this about me, but let me just say I'm a child of the 80s, so heavy metal music.
Okay.
I got to listen to country music. I couldn't tell you the first country artist.
So Metallica, Iron Maiden.
Iron Maiden.
Okay.
Maiden.
Black Sabbath.
This young
or
lady
just,
took me to see Iron Maiden in 2019 over at
PNC Music.
PNC.
It was outside, yeah.
One of the top moments of my life.
Wow. Well, you know what?
Pretty cool.
You know,
pretty cool.
I wasn't as much Iron Maiden, maybe as much as AC/DC, Judas Priest. You know, a little more. You know, I had those cassettes.
And there was
cassettes were these things that we used to have to put in these players.
My first Maiden stuff was a big album.
Yeah.
I wish I had them now.
Yeah,
these big albums.
Because that's kind of really made a comeback.
When I was at App, there was this other band that sort of formed up in L.A. in 1987 that took over in my heart for Iron Maiden. Something along the lines of Guns N' Roses.
Guns N' Roses,
It was those two outfits there. But Emma and I both went to shows in 2019. Iron Maiden and Guns N' Roses both came through Charlotte.
Oh, that's funny.
Iron Maiden was 10 times better than those guys.
And
Guns N' Roses did well for those.
They did, but I'm just shocked. I enjoyed myself more.
Some of those. Iron Maiden's a good example of they're just because I think some people steer away from because of just the style of music. But they're really good. And if you read, I've read enough. I got a couple of buddies who are really big fans of Iron Maiden, and so I hear a little bit
tremendous stage show
more about that. Yeah, and I think the guy has his pilot. They used to fly their plane around. So that's good. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
So kind of last question before we shift back to Carolina Q and Gaston County. What Tony, got a recent book or blog you follow or article or something you might share with our readers that
one thing
useful?
that relates to our exhibit that's a nice read, but anything barbecue is going to be controversial. But it's a book called Rodney Scott's World of Barbecue.
Okay.
And Rodney Scott has gotten a lot of fame in South Carolina barbecue. But there's a couple Netflix shows about barbecue, and he had an episode about him and his story and his journey and his style of barbecue. And he's got a couple books out, and it's readily available on Amazon and other sources. And it's just a really nice snapshot of his life and several of his recipes and how he conducts things. And it talks a lot about that barbecue's role in the community too and in families. It's a good read.
Okay. Emma, what about you?
I just have to say that book as well. I gave it a look too, and not only is it just like an interesting story, but the photos and pictures and just you have also, is it a separate book that it's the cookbook as well, or is it?
It's in the back of it.
Okay. Yeah, he also has a recipe for all of his. Yeah, I think you made white sauce one time, a barbecue sauce, but it was ranch based. Kind of good. I mean, but yeah, it was just interesting to read, and I would say that book as well.
Yeah, my first thought and you said ranch based, I don't know.
That's an Alabama thing, I believe.
Yeah, but on like baked
chicken.
Chicken. Yeah.
They call it white barbecue sauce or something. It's different.
Almost passed out when you said that.
Ranch and sour cream,
vinegar.
lemon juice.
I can see it more with chicken. Yes.
Chicken,
but not with. I'm thinking of that with actual barbecue. No. All right, so we're going to finish up here with just a few more questions. So remember, this is a a podcast talking about Gaston County and why Gaston County is great. So, besides this is start with you, maybe Emma. Besides the Caroline Q exhibit and the Shoe Museum in general, why would you say Gaston County is such a great place?
I think the community is really growing over the years. I think since 2020 COVID hit, I think we all kind of just got outside, and I didn't start going outside to these parks or the Greenway or anything until 2020. I didn't even know we had one in Gastonia. I was shocked. So, just getting outside, and then I know a few people that I pass on like a regular basis, and we say hey and stuff. So I think it's just since that and since the pandemic and as it's still going on, I think just coming together and just knowing each other. I think Gastonia is overlooked a lot for that because we're known for different things. But I think the community aspect is really growing, and especially with the new ballpark too. Right. I think that's brought a lot of people together.
I agree. Tony, how would you answer that?
I would say the people, and being that I've spent my entire existence really here in Gaston County, and I've seen a lot of changes around the county, but I don't think we're changing at the rate that other places in the Charlotte region are changing. There's still a lot of people here that grew up here.
Right.
Yeah, there's places you can go in Charlotte and you talk to people, and no one seems to be around. I've had people question me about my accent. Well, where are you from? I'm here. Where are you from? But there's still a lot of people, a lot of families with a lot of deep roots here, and that is becoming increasingly rare in our society.
Right.
And there's good that comes with change too, but I think there's real value in people having a home, having a region. Knowing one another, knowing what the local environment is, and it's refreshing that we still have some places in the Charlotte region that have a little bit of that feel to it, and that's one of the things I really appreciate.
Yeah, well, again, that's really good, and I would agree. I think it's really a unique place. So this last question, I think I say this every episode. This is my favorite question, so I might have to modify it for you, Emma, a little bit, but start with you, Tony. Knowing what you know now, what advice would you give your 20-year-old self?
Maybe not to worry so much about things, but to enjoy things in the moment at that time, because so many things that we get to do, that's your one shot. That's the time you get to do it when you're 20. You're out of the house, but you're not completely responsible for the entire world around you. You got a little bit of support. You got a lot of freedom, and you have the opportunity to explore and experience and do things. And I would encourage my 20-year-old self to just take advantage of all those opportunities, because, you wake up in just a few years and that's over, and the reality of life is set in, and should. We need to live responsible lives. But it's neat that there's a period of time around that age where you can really get out and explore and do. And I wish I had a little more courage to do a little more than I did.
Right. Yeah, that's good, because at 20, it's easy. I'm 51 now. It's easy to look back and say, boy, what was I thinking? At the time, though, it was so different. So, Emma, maybe modify that question slightly. Knowing what you know now, what advice would you give, say, your pre-college self?
I would have definitely told myself to make mistakes and make them again, because there's no way around it. You're not gonna learn anything if you just think, I can't make any mistakes. Yep. I have the perfect mindset. I have to go in there with the major that I'm going to want to major in, and then graduate. I graduated with a journalism degree, and now I'm in marketing. Yeah. And some people that look back on that would say that's not that big of a jump, but graduate with whatever you want to graduate with, and then figure it out.
Yeah.
Life is long, and also life is short, so just take your time and figure it out.
Yeah, that's good.
It's long or short depending on which end of the
you're on.
It's getting shorter, isn't it?
It's getting shorter by the day, I'm afraid.
Yeah, I've learned many times over that mistakes are your greatest teacher.
They are. Yeah.
At 20, I think I thought, if I make this mistake, it's going to affect me for a very long time, and they don't. Those decisions that seem so big back when I was 20,
they're minuscule.
Now
that you're looking back, it doesn't matter. Yeah,
it sure is. Well, guys, I cannot thank you enough for your time. So to finish up here, where can listeners go to learn more about, the exhibit and, just reiterate that I can get started. She said the day before Father's Day, just kind of contact, volunteer. How can they do all these things?
Shieldmuseum.org. Our website is where you'll find all of that information.
All right, very good. So this has been great. And so like I've done in the past, I'm going to finish up with my own book recommendation and kind of quote or thought for the week. And this is the second time I've used this author. He's a personal friend, actually, a gentleman named Mark Madison, who's actually come to our company before 2 or 3 times over the years and done some training with us. But his latest book is called Old Light Through New Windows. It's actually designed to be, it's got 52 chapters in it, so it's kind of designed to read and study one chapter a week, and it's just kind of give you some kind of different outlook and some tasks to perform each week. But again, it's a great book and one I would recommend that I've just recently read over the last month or two. And my thought for the week is one of my favorites, and I think it personally, I think it kind of applies to maybe our time. It's from Proverbs 21, verse 23. Whoever guards his mouth and tongue keeps his soul from troubles. I think in the times we're living in now, you don't have to respond or have a thought or comment or opinion about everything. It just seems like we live in a world where everybody's got an opinion about something, and whether right, wrong. And sometimes I've learned a lot of hard lessons, and a lot of them were around my mouth. And I have a gigantic foot that I have inserted in my mouth more than once. So keep that one in mind. So again, to our listeners out there, thanks so much for taking the time to listen to today's episode. Please spread the word if you can about the podcast, and please don't hesitate to contact us here at podcast@gastonsgreat.com. We are always looking for suggestions for future podcast topics and guests. You can find the podcast and subscribe at the website, gastonsgreat.com, or anywhere you listen to podcasts. And please follow us on all our social media platforms. And apparently, giving us a good rating, that would be a 5-star rating, helps our podcast get noticed. If anything less than 5, please do not rate us at all. Thanks again to Tony and Emma for being our guests today. Gaston's Great is produced and brought to you by Elizabeth King and Amy Anderson from GSM Services and edited here locally by the Sumner Group. I'm your host, Stephen Long. Thanks again for hanging out with us, and please keep coming back to hear more reasons why Gaston's great.